Up until now, those forced to live with a smoker were usually content to grin, or rather grimace, and bear it, but that may be about to change. Members of Newcastle University's Heart Disease Prevention program have conducted an extensive study into the effects of passive smoking. The results are chilling.
If you're a passive smoker at home, that is, you live in a house where other people smoke, that roughly doubles your risk of heart attack. And if you yourself are an active smoker, it's doubled again, so it's 3 or 4 times the risk if you're an active smoker.
The anti-smoking movement has lobbied long and hard to have smoking banned in all public places, citing the effects of passive smoking as a major justification. It's been quick to use the Newcastle results to add fuel to the fire of protest, and the campaign now seems likely to intensify.
The anti-smoking lobby now claim that the most important preventable cause of death from all causes in the world is active smoking. The second is probably a whole lot of things which would include alcohol, motor vehicle accidents and so on. And the third most important preventable cause of death is passive smoking.
An international forum on the effects of tobacco continues in Perth this week. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
A Newcastle-based consortium headed by Alco Steel was one of 3 Australian outfits vying for the lucrative tender to build part of the massive North West Shelf project. 2 of the 3 Australian bids were accepted, with the lion's share going to a Perth-based company, which won a $79 million contract to build topside modules on an offshore production platform. While the West can celebrate its good fortune, there's little joy for Newcastle. The irony is that the local bid was the lowest of the 3 Australian tenders. That is, it was so until the West Australian government stepped in at the 11th hour.
I think the important thing is the work that's been done in other areas that prevented the Newcastle Consortium getting it. We know that the Newcastle Consortium was the cheapest Australian tenderer. However, because of the intervention of the state government in offering the Western Australian tenderers a very handsome financial assistance package, they were then able to come in under the Newcastle tender quote.
It's understood the Greiner government reluctantly offered around $3 million in concessions to the Newcastle Consortium, but in line with its policy, New South Wales wasn't prepared to offer cold, hard cash. A commendable moral stand, says Peter Barrack, that may have cost the city up to 500 jobs. While New South Wales occupies the high moral ground, insisting contracts be won on merit, other states are shamelessly doing their best to out-subsidise the competition.
I think the federal government has to take stock of this and seek to put a stop to state governments tendering against each other by putting huge amounts of taxpayers' money to really what amounts to buying tenders.
Chairman of the Hunter Economic Development Council, David Boyd, says he's appalled by the way in which the tendering process was handled. He warns the circumstances of the North West Shelf contract question the integrity of the tendering system for lucrative projects.
And it seems that at the 11th hour there seems to have been some deduction from the Western Australian price. And to me, this is not the way you carry out a tender process. There's an equity and an honour involved in these sort of tenders that's respected all around the world, and I don't think that's been what's been happening here.
No matter what the reasons, another lost contract is a bitter pill to swallow for a city that's already missed out on lucrative deals to build the submarines and the frigates. Once again, questions are being asked as to what Newcastle has to do to win a major contract. Leslie Robinson, NBN News.
In In 21 previous meetings, the Canberra Cannons have come out on top 13-8, and after the poor showing by the Falcons in their match against Eastside Melbourne last weekend, that margin of 5 could increase. With new players trying to settle in and up against a very strong side, the Falcons were found wanting in a few areas, something that has been worked on this week at training. Both Canberra and Newcastle boast excellent backcourt men, and tonight's game could develop into the survival of the fittest, as the rival camps will be eager to run at the defence.
We'll continue the faster game. We're trying to push the ball up the court at all times and get the clear shot. We've got such good shooters that we feel that's probably that best suits our game. And then somehow we've got to get Greg Lazard into the game more, which we've worked on through the week as well.
The Cannons have won 3 NBL crowns and have been the bridesmaid twice, and will field 2 new players this year, American import Charlie Thomas and Australian Craig Irvine, big men who will take a power of containing around the basket at either end of the court. To back them up is everyone's favourite basketball player, Phil Smythe, and he's more than happy with the players' progress.
Well, Craig's done exceptionally well pre-season for a young kid, and Charlie's shown that he can be a great player. It's just whether he's going to be consistent. I guess he's only 23, so it's going to take him a while to settle in and adjust, but if he plays as well as he can, then we're in great shape again this year.
Booming crowds at the International Sports Centre each home game proves Newcastle is a rugby league town. Last year in the Winfield Cup, Novocastrian fans outdid all other clubs at a game average of 21,300. Today, member for Newcastle George Keegan announced a $40,000 grant and a $75,000 low-interest loan for ISC improvements. The money will be spent on resurfacing the car park, improving roads around the Oval and developing a new training area outside the main arena. A $200,000 shortfall in funds is to be made up by the ISC Trust. Rugby league fans are now looking jealously at other grounds, such as the Parramatta Stadium, which cost $15 million of state and federal government funds, but attracts crowds of 14,000 people. However, George Keegan believes it's an unfair comparison. He says Newcastle is getting a fair go from Macquarie Street.
They've also put in money for the hockey complex, and they've put in a couple of $1 million into that trotting track. The Parramatta Stadium comparison's not a fair one. That was built purely on political grounds. It was an excess. Most people objected it at the time, but they had the political muscle to get it there. And good luck to Parramatta.
The Knights did receive a $600,000 grant in 1987, but with the ISC Trust are now looking to the government for further funding. Peter Ryan, NBN News. It's been a tough week for the competitors at the Lowlands Bowling Club. 88 bowlers from 46 different clubs started in the event. Today, only 8 remained for the quarterfinals. Despite the wet weather, the greens have been playing true at 13 seconds, giving spectators a close look at some top-class bowling. Maitland bowlers Terry Harmer and Peter Monaghan had good victories. Robert Rocket Thompson from East Cessnock and Noel Waite from Redhead also got through. The tournament continues tomorrow with the semi-finals, running down to the finals on Sunday.
The district of Rainbow Flat was turned into a battleground this morning, littered with the carnage of the horror smash which has left one woman dead and 4 others in hospital, 2 of them fighting for their lives. The nightmare began just after 10 o'clock when the Datsun Bluebird station wagon, being driven south by Walter and Eileen Hancock of Rutherford, ploughed head-on into a Ford sedan carrying 3 members of the Skelton family from Marmong Point. Behind the wheel, 42-year-old mother Rosalind, her 17-year-old daughter Kylie beside her, and 9-year-old Christy in the rear seat. Rescue teams arrived a short time later to find both the Hancocks trapped inside the mangled wreckage of their car. 60-year-old Eileen died on impact. Her husband was semi-conscious. He'd suffered severe head and internal injuries. In the other car, Rosalind Skelton and daughter Kylie were also trapped. Rescue workers were forced to work furiously for almost an hour before all the injured would free. In the meantime, paramedics on the scene were working desperately to stabilise 9-year-old Christy. She'd sustained serious head and spinal injuries. The Westpac rescue helicopter was called to the scene from Newcastle to transport the youngster to the Mater Hospital. However, her worsening condition forced paramedics to send her to Taree for emergency surgery. The helicopter remained on standby, and at 4 o'clock this afternoon, after a long stint in the operating theatre, Christy was flown to the Royal North Shore Hospital at St Leonard's, where she remains in a critical condition. Tracy Reid, NBN News.
And in Fennell Bay, traffic was held up all morning after a coal truck and a bread van collided. It happened at 5:30 a.m. on the Toronto side of the Fennell Bay Bridge near the Lions Park. The vehicle sideswiped, the 21-tonne S-Line International truck laden with coal rolling down the embankment. The bread truck also rolled, losing its load on the road. Emergency teams took nearly an hour to free the Buttercup driver, 32-year-old Stephen Walsh of Butterbar. He is now in a serious condition with broken legs in the Royal Newcastle Hospital. The truck driver, Bob Mitchell of Dora Creek, was taken to Wallsend Hospital with head injuries. He is now said to be in a stable condition. But it took hours to recover his truck and his load. A crane was called in to pull the cab onto the road, while a bobcat operator salvaged tons of coal.
Well, she isn't quite the Easter Bunny, but then it isn't quite Easter yet. This is Jesnet, part of the Dolomite family, and she arrived bearing Easter eggs and gifts for the patients in the children's ward at the Royal Newcastle Hospital. Some of these children have been in hospital for weeks and face many more weeks there, so the staff of the Commonwealth Bank in Newcastle decided to do their bit to cheer them up a little. The bag of goodies certainly put a smile on their faces, as did the sight of the smiling Jesnet Dolomite.
Done some chocolate, Jesney?
But some were not so sure about the grinning robot.
Plans to rebuild the Workers' Club have been complex and lengthy. At one stage it was proposed that the present site be abandoned altogether, but now the club board is committed to rebuilding on the existing block. But its first step towards that goal is already raising eyebrows in the local building industry. Although the board won't comment publicly, it appears to have accepted an offer by Sydney-based Civil and Civic to handle a project. The contract is a lucrative one. Civil and Civic would appoint consultants, set the program and pace, and call tenders or subcontractors. Local building companies have reacted with wry amusement. Stronach expressed surprise that they hadn't been contacted for an expression of interest. Doran Construction missed out, but will be looking for contracts further in the process along with others. McCloy's wished Civil and Civic all the best, but were equally adamant that local contractors were capable of handling the job. A company spokesman also observed that unions had walked off a McCloy's construction site when it employed out-of-state subcontractors. All agreed the best tender won. Nevertheless, the battle is far from over. The project management contract is an important one, but it's by no means the only opportunity for Newcastle's subcontractors. Unions are likely to insist on a very strong local building component, and with a 20% slump in the non-residential building industry predicted for this year, competition for those contracts is going to be fierce. In the meantime, the Workers' Club says it will be about a fortnight before it releases details of its future plans. Architects' drawings will then be prepared, leading to a development application. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Oh, yeah. Big holes in it, see? Oh, we do, mate. What size are they? I don't know why.
According to police, staggered departure times for holidaymakers have helped even out the Easter rush.
We also go to great lengths to try and educate them not to all leave at the one time and try to get to their destination as quickly as possible. And I think that the message is getting through.
While most roads are reported to be free-flowing, traffic has banked up at the Freeman's Waterhole interchange in the south and the Pacific Highway running into Raymond Terrace in the north. Mate, what do you think about the bank up in traffic?
Well, it's not real good, but I guess we'll cope with it. You know, it's been pretty good so far.
Do you expect this over the holiday period?
Yeah.
Think it'll get worse?
I hope not.
Motorists are making good use of driver reviver stops. Today, more than 700 people pulled in for a coffee and a break at Charlestown. Police are warning drivers to keep a cool head in the traffic. 300 people have already been reported for traffic offences. The Highway Patrol will be on the lookout for more tonight. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Damien was in Byron Bay to compete in the Easter Surf Classic. On Easter Sunday night, he and the caretaker of the Broken Bay Caravan Park where he was staying were changing gas cylinders on the park's hot water system. It is believed there was still some gas left in the lines, which ignited as the changeover was made. A huge fireball blew both men out of the amenities building. Both sustained severe second-degree burns to 65% of their bodies. They are now in a stable condition. Damien was to compete in the World Amateur Surfing titles in Japan later this month, but the accident has put an end to that hope.
Trying to keep his chin up as much as possible, and he obviously realises that he can't make it to Japan, so he just wants to get better. That's the main object at this moment.
His position in the Australian team is expected to be filled by Gold Coast surfer Neil Purchase.
The Australian Chamber Orchestra first appeared in Newcastle last year, and that performance was so popular, 3 concerts have been arranged for 1990. The programme at the Newcastle Conservatorium tonight will feature the music of Bartok, Vivaldi and Haydn. The 19 musicians who make up the ACO are aged between 20 and 40. The acclaimed violinist and concertmaster Richard Dognetti is just 24. The orchestra normally performs in Sydney, Melbourne and Canberra, but has developed a following in the Hunter Valley, with tonight's concert nearly sold out. Such concerts are a major source of revenue for the group. Just 40% of its costs are met from government subsidy and corporate sponsorship. If you miss tonight's concert, the orchestra will be back in town in May. John Church, NBN News.
Contrary to appearances, these daredevil Aussies are actually rising to great heights. Under the careful guidance of Ken Hills, the 8-man crew won Australia's first skydiving world title.
It's taken 25 years of Australian competition in World Parachute Championships to come up with our first gold. And this team won gold bronze in '86, they won the silver in '88, and to come away with the gold in '90 is just a culmination of all their efforts. It's really good to see.
They may have been favourites, but the going was anything but easy. Conditions in Thailand ranged from demanding to downright dangerous, but fortunately for the Australian team, things aren't much different back home.
It was a nine jump competition. We had a half a second lead on them going into the last jump, and we ended up 25 seconds in front after the last jump because ours held together and theirs didn't. So it was probably our training in hot thermal conditions in Australia that gave us the edge, I would say, yeah.
But even for a man with a gold medal round his neck, it's still a long way to fall. But after thousands of jumps, fear isn't even a factor.
No, skydiving for me is like driving a car. If I can miss all the other people in the vicinity of me, I'll probably survive forever.
It rained cats and dogs 2 years ago, and it was surprising to see the ISC stand up to play as it did, with Wally's boys winning that match and many admirers on the way. Sunday will provide conditions similar to 88, but the ground is saturated at the moment, with a huge puddle of water lying in the middle of the ground and the western half resembling the flooded outback of Queensland. The Knights have made 3 changes to the team that lost to Parramatta last Sunday. Jeff Doyle returns from injury, Robbie McCormack comes in at halfback, and Tony Butterfield will start in the front row. John Allinson retains his position on the wing. For Alan McMahon, the dropping of Steve Fulmer and Ashley Gordon was forced upon him.
Of the form of guys who've taken their places that we considered, it was more outstanding than possibly theirs, so they were a victim of guys playing better than them.
Newcastle hasn't so far beaten Brisbane in their Winfield Cup encounters, and again, even though suffering many injuries, the Broncos will be hard to beat.
Yeah, Brisbane's going to be a tough game. They've coming off a loss, and we're coming off a loss, and certainly the way the points table indicated and the way both sides are positioned on it, we can't let too many sides above us get away from us.
Brisbane captain Gene Miles isn't too certain what went wrong against the Panthers last Saturday.
That seems to be the $6 million question. I haven't been able to put my finger on it, but any side that leads by 8 points at half time should go on and win the game. But we didn't go out there with that attitude and didn't want to put the hard work in early, and Penrith punished us for lack of ball security.
There's not the frantic build-up to the meeting of the 2 new boys in the Winfield Cup as there has been in previous years, but Wally Buster T-shirts will be in abundant supply to add a little extra stick. For Gene Miles, it's the forwards of Newcastle who will provide the firepower.
But once again, they're playing the Broncos, and every side lifts themselves for us, and their strengths are in their forwards, and it's pretty obvious that's where they'll take us on. And they probably watched the game on Saturday and thought we were a bit vulnerable once again up the centre, so it's probably no secret they'll take us on there.